Let's go! Say it ain't so, Raesjon Davis, who committed on New Year's Day before our great national championship win over Clemson. We got the great news that Raesjon was coming to be the next Kelvin Shepherd at LSU, the next great Brady James at LSU, potentially the next Devin White, just to see him go. The California linebacker decommits from LSU. In this video, I'm going to tell you how I actually feel about the linebacker position moving forward, because I am concerned. Raesjon Davis says, Tiger Nation, thank you for everything. I had some great memories in such little time. As of now, I would like to decommit from LSU and explore each of my options thoroughly. So, this does not come as a shock to people that have been following recruiting. Now, if you kind of sort of follow recruiting and you haven't been keeping up with the day-to-day minutia, I don't blame you, because it can be a headache. But a lot has changed from Raesjon Davis's New Year's Day commitment to now. When he committed to LSU, Dave Aranda was still LSU's defensive coordinator, and he thought he was going to a 3-4 defense. Now, his good friend Eli Ricks is still there, but ultimately, recruits are going to make decisions that best help themselves. No blame whatsoever on that. I totally get it. Obviously, since Raesjon Davis's commitment, remember, his commitment to LSU was pre-pandemic. He is a kid from California. Yeah, Cali. So what does that mean? Well, in a pandemic, obviously, it's not as easy to travel back and forth from California. And obviously, to make that long trip is kind of difficult if you want to see your family quite a bit. And I'm someone that when I went to college, I was within driving distance of my family when I went to LSU. So, I totally get that from Mater Dei High School all the way to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now, obviously, you look at Raesjon Davis's recruiting ranking, this is as high of a 4-star you're going to find. Now, he was once a 247 Sports Composite 5-star, eventually got knocked down to a 4-star, but nevertheless, at a position where LSU will be losing Jabril Cox. We don't know what's going to happen with Damon Clark. Micah Baskerville is coming up on his senior year. So, this is a position where LSU was going to rely on Raesjon Davis to help build the depth of that position. And, a lot of people thought he was a lock to go to LSU. But obviously a lot has changed. All the off-the-field investigations have happened. Bo Pelini hasn't held up his end of the deal when it comes to coaching a reasonable defense, where in 8 of our 10 games, we gave up 7+ yards per play, which is not good. So where's Raesjon Davis going to go? A lot of momentum has gained with Ohio State. More than likely, I would guess USC, especially if his good friend Corey Foreman actually ends up going to USC. We won't know for sure until January 2nd. So, yeah, this obviously stinks. But if you're an LSU fan, you shouldn't panic. As I always say, one recruit doesn't change your class, especially a recruit from California, especially a recruit that more than likely is not going to go to another SEC West school or just another SEC school. So it's kind of like with Rakim Jarrett last year. Do you remember him? He was a 5-star wide receiver who was committed to LSU. The day of his signing, he flips to Maryland. He decided to stay at home. And guess what? We got Kayshon Boutte. We got Coy Moore. Both of those guys had just as good, if not better, seasons than Rakim Jarrett at Maryland. So, whenever a recruit decommits from you, at the very least, you hope that they end up going to a school that is not in the SEC. Obviously, it would have been really nice. This is a really cool graphic from Hayes Fawcett to see Raesjon Davis at LSU. He looks like a menacing linebacker there, but this was a guy who has great speed, can cover in space, but I'm not so sure if he was a year one starter. I'm not sure if he's someone that if you plug him in, he's going to be Jabril Cox. I think he was more of a year two, year three type of player. So while he does have modern linebacker traits, great speed, great size, great mind, it's better that he goes elsewhere, because if you were going to want him to play right away, it would have been very, very difficult. So as you can see here, the linebacker depth looks okay. You know, we're hoping Josh White can be the guy that we pumped him up to be. Earlier this year, Ed Orgeron said Josh White was going to start getting some playing time on defense. Well, we never really saw him play on defense. That's why I was shocked to not really see him in any games, so we can at least get some game experience. I didn't quite understand that. I'm always told by coaches that getting game experience early is a good thing for a recruit down the road. It gives them a taste of the big show. But we never really got to see Josh White actually play linebacker. So Devon Clark is definitely going to be back at a Southern Lab. It was a rough year for him, and there's no other way around it. Obviously, switching from a 3-4 to a 4-3 is really hard on a linebacker, and being given that famous number 18 jersey is really hard, but we are hoping for a step forward for a linebacker that's huge. One thing I have to give Clark a lot of credit for, though, is that he did stick it out. He never took plays off, and this is going to sound funny, but it's true. He did a great job when he did get beat or when someone else got beat, chasing down ball carriers and making tackles 20 or 30 yards down the field. So that's obviously not something that's too big of a positive, but still, it's a positive. We'll take it. And Micah Baskerville, obviously coming back, he's going to be a starter, a senior, a candidate himself for the number 18 jersey. Wasn't even projected to even play that much this year on defense, but because we struggled so much at linebacker, he was forced into action, and honestly, even more so than Cox and Clark, I thought Baskerville was LSU's best linebacker this year. You have Antoine Sampa, the former 5-star, ended up a 4-star 247 composite. You know, we didn't really hear a whole lot about him. Out of Woodbridge, Virginia, I'm hoping he could come in and play some next year now that he's got a year under his belt with the Bo Pelini defense. And then we have Phillip Webb, who's actually kind of a B.J. Ojulari edge rusher type of player. So not necessarily someone that you would figure into covering guys in space as a linebacker, the Jabril Cox role. So Phillip Webb's a guy that was highly rated coming out of high school, and let's hope for future reference that he turns out to be the dude that we expect him to be. While Raesjon Davis is not obviously a player that you think would play right away, you know, you take a look at this nationally ranked recruiting class, I am a little concerned because he was such a highly rated running back, a top 100 linebacker, and I know a lot of you people watching this are really high on Greg Penn out of DeMatha, Maryland, and I hope he turns out to be the player that we expect him to be. And getting this big-time recruit right here at this position makes losing Raesjon Davis that much more, I guess you could say, palpable. It makes us feel a little bit better. But what concerns me is that Greg Penn is the only traditional linebacker you got in this class out of the high school recruits. A lot of us are hoping BUGG Strong is the next Jabril Cox, a guy that you get in the JUCO market that could play right away. And he's more of, as you can tell, the number one inside linebacker in JUCO. To me, from the little bit that I saw, he's more of a traditional, I guess you could say, thumper linebacker, a guy that is going to stop the run at high efficiency. So I want to give you one little nugget here at the end where I think LSU potentially made a mistake. I don't know the full story, but let's get to it. So here is longtime commitment Khari G, a 3-star safety who ended up going to Notre Dame, and he was committed to LSU for a long time. And he jumps off the tape. I really love Khari G. Now, I don't love him the same way that I like Sage Ryan or Derek Davis Jr., but he's also a different player than those guys. We're looking at a huge kid. 6'3" is a huge size for a safety, 185. Okay? He's going to put on some good weight at Notre Dame, and I'm going to call it now. He's going to be an all-ACC, all-American type of player. He fills an alley as good as any safety prospect in this class that I've seen. What I mean by that, he was so good at getting into the box and just making plays and making tackles and tackling guys in the open field. So, losing him at the last second kind of stinks, but I'm not going to complain too much simply because, well, LSU signed the best safety class in the country, okay? Our boy Matthew Langlois, who's going to be a great player at LSU. Ed Orgeron recruited him hard. 504, obviously a 3-star, but out of my mother's hometown of New Roads, I've talked about him a lot right here. I really hope he becomes a player we all think he can be as the safety linebacker type. Notice, he's obviously not as big, 6 foot to 6'3" as Khari G, but this kid has a frame that can get even bigger than what it is now. And if LSU wants to make him a linebacker, that would actually be a really good fit for Matthew Langlois down the road. Now, he's not a year one player, but he's going to turn out to be, to me, a good starter for LSU, maybe in year 2 or year 3. But in a class where you get Sage Ryan and Derek Davis Jr., I can't complain too much about the safety position. However, Khari G to me is a linebacker. And I think Khari G is the Jabril Cox type of player. And I was really impressed with him. I thought he could have been a year 1 contributor. Now, obviously, I think more highly of him than most people. I'm shocked that he wasn't a 4-star player. To me, if he would have signed, he would have been one of my top 10 players in this 2021 class. Now, Khari G has had some interesting comments about LSU. Did LSU process him at the last second so they can have more slots? Remember, this is a legendary safety class. 2 of the top 5 safeties in college football recruiting are coming. One from your own backyard, who's a 5-star. Got Matthew Langlois, who you consider your diamond in the rough in this class. You got 20 people signed. Remember, you can only have 25 per class. And remember, you're also going to take Savion Jones. So that's 21. You want to leave those 4 slots for the position that you really need help at, which is offensive line. So, yeah, losing Raesjon Davis, losing Khari G, it stinks. It does stink. Those 2 will probably be really good players, but those slots could be better used for some other positions of need. So LSU knows that they have 4 slots. They need to fill them with some bona fide studs on the offensive line, and we'll see what happens. So some late-breaking news here. Apu Ika transfers to Baylor. Our boy Dave Aranda and Dennis Meatball Johnson. That was his nickname. He was a great coach at LSU. Obviously, the connections there. Obviously, Dave Aranda's 3-4 defense is fulcrumed. Is that the word? Fulcrumed by the nose tackle position. And Apu Ika, 6'2", 372, was a pretty solid player. I mean, he played pretty well for LSU in his limited snaps this year. just wanted to go elsewhere. I wish him the best. He was a part of the national championship team, and LSU will move forward, obviously, with Jaquelin Roy, Jacobian Guillory, and Mason Smith. It is our LSU. Boom. Woo. It's leftover calzone time. Let's go.